So Gaijin gave us a event on the dev server in order to test out active radar homing missiles. This is the first public test of stuff like the AMRAAM and R-77, which are very, very different in performance to the Phoenix missiles. This is why there have been so many discussions over the past couple of days about how this is going to affect the meta in the future. However, the test event is only in the realistic battles game mode, and if you know me, I make sim videos. But with the event only being available in RB, of course, and the meta being so wildly different in sim battles, I thought it would be fun to sort of make a video of me sort of, yeah, having a go at predicting where the meta is sort of going to shift and what it's actually going to do to the simulator game mode. Now, I've actually been away for most of the weekend, so I didn't get to play this that much. However, the footage that you're going to be seeing in the background here is courtesy of Sky King, who was kind enough to record some of his play sessions in the dev server. So yeah, big thank you to him. But we're not really going to be talking about the gameplay here. Now, I have been talking about this like quite a lot with the people that I play with, as well as my Discord server, which has been absolutely popping off, by the way, since Friday, of people just talking about this data mining stuff. It's incredible. And I've made some notes of a few sort of talking points that I want to sort of share with you guys. And the first one is obviously the testing event here, I think, is the right move from Gaijin. I think this is absolutely excellent. I think people were very disappointed with the trailer for the update last week, obviously because we were all kind of hoping for Fox-3s, and then they were just kind of like, hey, here's a 9.0 ground attacker and a $75 premium, hey. And obviously a bunch of people weren't too excited about something like that, so I think that's why they decided to push this event out now, just to sort of try and rekindle some of that hype that, you know, regular updates would usually bring. But it doesn't matter why they did it. The reason is they did do it, and we just kind of have to hope now that they actually listen to the community's feedback. So before I carry on, I should probably explain why the meta is actually different in Sim to RB, because after all, we get basically the same flight models. You just control them a little bit differently, and that's obviously one of the first things you notice is that you have to actually fly the plane. This plays more of a role in props than it does with jets. But another thing is also that you're stuck in the cockpit view, you cannot go into third person, and of course there's no markers or anything like that. So in fact, the only visual aids that you do get in sim game mode is like, I believe if you're within 800 meters of a friendly, their name will show up in blue, letting you know that they're a friendly. But as you go up in the BRs, the engagement distances get a lot bigger. So you become increasingly reliant on your avionics package. So that is your radar, and more importantly, your radar warning receiver. Or maybe not more important than a radar, but it is pretty damn important. I would say it's like 60-40 kind of, right? The problem that we have in Sim right now at top tier is the fact that the Western aircraft are so much better at this whole situational awareness thing than the Russian planes. This is a combination through the fact that they generally get better radars. The RWR is a lot better. It gives you a lot more information. And yeah, I would say in most cases the cockpit visibility is better as well on a Western aircraft. Couple that with the AIM-9M spam, the fact that the R-27ER can just be defeated incredibly easily just by flying low like any other radar missile. And you know, the lack of situational awareness and everything, you get the idea. You can sort of start to see why the blue side is favored so much more in Sim. And you can see this in the lobby in the server list as well. It's like there's so many games, like almost every game has like more blue side players than they actually do red side players. I know that America is more popular nation than Russia, like in War Thunder. However, this doesn't explain why so many Russian players are leaving mid-match all the time, right? I'll spare you most of the details, but in general, if you're flying in a Russian plane, say like the Flanker for instance, most of the time you don't really have a clear picture of the whole battle space, right? In other words, you don't really know what's going on. And if you're in an F-16 or an F-15 or whatever, you do. Now, it's already bad enough as it is right now with the amount of times that you get snuck up on when you're flying something like a flanker, because the RWR just gives you so much information at once without actually filtering out what information is important right now and which isn't. So you kind of just, you can't react to everything, so you just kind of end up just ignoring the RWR. And I think adding sort of missiles into this game that can hit you reliably from like 10 to 15 miles out and will only give you a solid lock tone a couple seconds out from before they hit you, this is going to become very, very difficult for people that aren't as experienced or don't have like hundreds of hours in the sim game mode to deal with, because there are so many steps that you are going to have to think ahead in order to sort of win that engagement compared to the other guy, how much work the other guy's going to have to do. Most people are just going to not play the red side planes, and they're going to move over to the blue side with the American teams, because you don't really have to think, because all of your plane gives you the information that you need, right? You don't have to interpret as much. And I think this is going to get reflected in the matchmaker, obviously, in the server, the team balance. I think it's going to become even more lopsided than it is right now. I think right now it's still pretty lopsided, but it's in a much better space than it was like a couple months ago. And I really hope I'm wrong about this, and I hope we're not going to go back to the way it was. However, if they don't do something, I feel like this is probably where we're going to end up. Now, I need to mention at this point that the Russian RWR is not finalized right now. It's still missing actually a lot of features that it had in real life, and Gaijin is working on these. And you can see this on, I believe the dev server actually has this right now. When you look at the SPO15 RWR display in the Russian planes, it's actually lit up now, which it isn't on the live server. Now, I'm pretty sure it's not working quite as it's supposed to as of now. However, it does show that they are working on it, and I think for the, because Gaijin is obviously aware of this, they are aware of the disadvantage that the Russian teams face right now when it comes to avionics, and I believe they are working on this. However, even if they get the RWR working, however, how it should be, to the point where it kind of reflects reality, in reality, it's not as advanced as the Western RWRs. The Western RWR can track multiple sort of signal sources and give you the signal strength for each individual target, right? The Russian SPO15 doesn't do that. Please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this information in the comments, by the way, but as far as I know, it only it only gives you the signal strength for the strongest signal, i.e. the closest target. And at this point, it really depends on how Gaijin are going to implement this and how they're going to sort of program the thing to filter out what kind of threat it wants to do. Because if it is literally just the closest signal source, so in that case the strongest signal source, does that mean every time that you fly over a ground battle with all of those like little AAA trucks like trying to like light you up with their like pulse radars or whatever, does that mean that it's going to give you the range on those things and not the F-16 that's locking you up from 15 miles away that's just fired an AMRAAM? Because I know which one I'd rather have the range information on. Or there could be situations where there's an enemy like 6 miles behind you, locking you up, chasing you, but he's not quite within missile range. So as long as you keep your speed up, you're actually not in any danger. But there's an F-15 in front of you 15 miles that is looking to fire off AMRAAMs, and you need to get your R-77 off before he does, or you're going to lose an engagement. Now, is it going to give you the distance of that F-15, or is it going to give you the distance of the plane behind you? Because technically that's the stronger signal source, even though it's not the most dangerous signal source, let's say. These are kind of issues that we're just honestly going to have to wait and see. I mean, I don't play DCS. I don't know how like DCS does this when in the flanker, how that RWR filters targets or whatever, but War Thunder does generally seem to be a lot more cluttered when it comes to these kind of engagements, and I think the Russian RWR is just, it's gonna sort of show its age a little bit, if you know what I mean. And unless they add any new aircraft for Russia as well, I think the only two planes in the tech tree that are technically capable of carrying R-77s are, of course, the MiG-29 SMT and the Yak-141, according to some internet articles that I've read. And both of those planes aren't really, like what you would consider to be meta or whatever. I mean, the Yak-141 is kind of, right, it's kind of eh. And both of those planes aren't really what I would, consider to be meta or anything like that. So, I mean, the SMT is kind of alright. It does get the good RWR, and it is pretty fast in a straight line. However, you're always going to lack like sort of maneuverability and flight performance and stuff. Plus, the high speed energy retention is just kind of atrocious on that thing. Once you start cranking, you sort of you disengage, you go cold, and you want to recommit and do the whole like DCS thing or whatever that they do in Fox-3 fights, you see on like Grounding Sidewinder videos and stuff. The SMT isn't particularly good at doing that, just because its high altitude performance isn't really, it doesn't want to really turn, right? The F-15 and the F-16 are amazing at doing that, but the SMT isn't really. What the SMT is basically, it's just a coping mechanism for the Russian team, right? And if you think the Yak-141 is going to be the thing that saves the Russian team, then I just don't know what to say to you. Okay, so like, imagine this. The update is finally out. AMRAAMs, R-77s, Derbies, Micas, they're all in the game. You load up the game, you try and find a match for the Americans, and you can't find any sim matches for the Americans because obviously everyone's playing America, everyone wants to use the AMRAAM. So if you want to really play a sim, you're going to have to play on the red side. What can you do in order to cope with it? I believe the answer lies in the minor nations. If you only have America and Russia at top tier right now, I think it's high time for you to grind a different nation, specifically a minor nation. My personal recommendation would be France, but basically France, Sweden, Japan, China even, even though I wouldn't call China a minor nation, Italy even when it's getting the gripping now. Any of these nations would be absolutely fine. The reason is because they can sort of play on both teams, except for China. China is always going to get grouped up with Russia, but things like Italy, Sweden, Japan, what was the other one? France. They can always sort of like flip-flop on both sides depending on the matchmaker. So if you have one of these nations, there's always going to be a chance for you to find a match where you can actually play against the Americans on the red side, however with a Western style aircraft, right? The problem is if you only have Russia and the US, let's just say for example, two things are going to constantly happen. You're either going to be absolutely outmanned and outgunned every single time and you're not going to have a good time, or you're going to really struggle to find enemies, and both of these scenarios aren't very fun if you're trying to play a video game. Like I said, if you don't have any of these nations, I would personally recommend France, just because I think the Mirage has the most sort of unique flight model in the game. It's the most different flight model to what the Russians have and what the Americans have. However, you can pretty much go for anything you like. You can go to Italy with because they're going to get a Gripen. Same with Sweden, obviously they have the Gripen as well. You can also go for Japan or something, right, with the F-15, and I'm assuming the F-15J is going to get its AMRAAMs as well. Also go for China. China only gets put on the red side, but the red side's generally always going to have less players, so you're always going to find matches for China. And China obviously gets the F-16A MLU, which is a Block 15 F-16 with the avionics package out of an F-16C. Minus the helmet mounted sight, but you do get AMRAAMs on it. Like I said, it really doesn't matter, just go for whatever nation has your favorite plane or whatever. It's just, you need something, you need a Western style aircraft in order to fight other Western style aircraft, because the way the Soviet planes are just sort of designed in this game, I don't think they're really going to cut it, right? Ultimately, with the way the Fox-3 missiles are right now on the dev server with multipathing and stuff, I don't think it's necessarily going to drive fights up to high altitudes like everyone was kind of hoping for. I think it might actually have the opposite effect, where it's going to drive combat sort of even lower than it already is, because people are just so scared to just have an AMRAAM shot at them or an R-77 or whatever from an angle that they can't see it coming. They want to be close to the ground in order to react to it fast enough, right? So again, I think maps like Denmark, Sinai, whatever, are still going to be absolute poo to play, and just because everyone's just going to hug the ground, and maps like Afghanistan, Vietnam, Spain, and whatever, it's still going to be absolutely goated. So now I did also have a bunch of notes about like the performance differences between the different missiles and stuff on the dev server, but I don't think it's going to be worth sort of delving too deep into the specifics there, because obviously everything's still so liable to change, and the missiles all perform very similarly at the moment anyway, which they don't do in real life. So I do have a few predictions that I'm just going to mention. I think the R-77 is, I don't think it's going to be absolutely terrible, but I don't see it being better than the AMRAAM in any case. I think it might be a bit more maneuverable, but the AMRAAM is like, it's like a 30 or 35G missile anyway, and you know, if you have a missile that's going to be like 40 or 45Gs, it's not gonna make a difference, right? Like realistically speaking, it's more about like kinetic energy and how far the missile flies and how fast it's going to be when it actually reaches the target and stuff. So I think the Mica might sort of kinetically be the best missile. Maybe has a little bit less range than the AMRAAM, but I think it's definitely going to be faster, kind of like how the Magics are generally regarded as the fastest Fox-2 missiles, or like the close range dogfighty ones or whatever. And then when it comes to stuff like the Derby missile and the PL-12s, I don't think they're working correctly on the dev server at the moment anyway, because they seem to be lofting too much. So I'll reserve judgment on those. But like I said, most of this is definitely going to change, like 100%, and we can't really take any of this and sort of put it into stone just yet. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I want to just reiterate at this point that these are just my personal predictions. I have absolutely no inside knowledge of anything, of course. I'm just some dude who makes YouTube videos. I've been playing this game for about 4 years. Well, I've been playing Sim for about 4 years, and there are people that watch my videos, or even in my Discord server, that have been playing for more than twice that amount, right? That may know a little bit more than me about this kind of stuff. I'm fairly confident about the things I said in this video. That's why I made the video on them. If you disagree or have any other opinions, please, just let me know in the comments. I'd actually be interested to hear what people have to say about this kind of stuff. And if you're interested, yeah, join my Discord. Link is in the description. We're having daily conversations about this stuff at the moment. So if you want to, if that sounds like fun to you, then feel free to join in. We'd love to have you. Other than that, guys, I thank you very, very, very much for watching this video, and I will hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.